I don't care how good the singer is. If I'm involved in the editing process, then I'm always, like 9 times out of 10, I'm doing some kind of pitch correction. So today we're going to talk about Slate Digital's MetaTune plugin. It's an auto-tune plugin, but you can use it for more than just that hard-tuned hip-hop effect. I personally have been using it for natural sounding pitch correction, adding width to vocal tracks. It's really a nice alternative to having to do manual pitch correction with something like flex pitch in Logic or Melodyne. I'm going to share 3 tips with you today, and make sure to stick around to the end of the video because I've got a bonus tip for you as well. Let's do it. What's up, guys? It's me, Jake Codeweiss with Musician on a Mission, and today we're talking MetaTune. So tip number 1 is don't go chromatic. And really what I mean by this is you want MetaTune to actually catch the notes that make the most sense for the song, that are in the scale or in the key of the song. So if you pull up the plugin here, you'll see that every single note is selected here. This is such a cool looking plugin, right? You can go to this spot on the left bottom side and choose whatever key your song is in. I know this key's in G major, so boom, automatically selects all the keys that make sense for that scale. I'm going to start just by giving you an example with a super fast speed. Don't worry, we're going to get into these controls in the next tip. So let's just take a listen to this vocal in solo. This is a Tom Petty cover that I did recently. If you want to listen to the whole song, I'll make sure to include the SoundCloud link in the description. But let's fire it up here. Let's see what the vocal sounds like hard tuned.
Well, I won't back down. No, I won't back down.
So you can see how this pitch is kind of moving around, and if we were to select all of the notes, it actually might tune it to one of the notes that we don't want. All right. Make it sound kind of gross.
Well, I won't back down.
Right? A lot more flutter going on here. So if you're not sure what key your song is actually in, this plugin's got a great feature where you can actually press these little blocks above the keys while the vocal is playing, and it will give you the tone.
Well, I won't back down. No, I won't back down.
Right? So you can select the keys by ear. Let's do that.
Well, I won't back down. No, I
won't back down, right? So we can deselect everything that's not being used here.
Well, I won't back down. No, I won't back down. Well, I won't back.
Right, so we're not using any of these keys. That's a G pentatonic major. This vocal line is only really hitting 5 notes here. 2, 3, 4, 5.
Well, I won't back down. No, I won't back down.
Okay, so that's how you can really just kind of hone in on the actual keys and the actual notes that are being used in the melody. So it's helpful to really narrow in on that. Tip number 2 is to use slower speeds. So at this point, we've got the speed cranked as quickly as it can go, which is giving you that hard-tuned kind of effect. Now, if we slow that down, we're going to get more of a natural sounding pitch correction. And the way I like to think about this control is more of a transition time. Basically, what this control does, it controls how fast the pitch correction is actually applied, right? So the transition time between the notes. It just makes more sense to me to think about it in terms of transition time. I'm going to pull that down and listen to the difference that makes.
Well, I won't back down. No, I won't back down. Well, I won't back down. No, I won't back down.
Way more natural, right? So really, this is the key. The speed controls kind of make the biggest difference here on how this plugin reacts. Easy way to remember it, slower speed means a slower transition time between the notes. It's going to sound more natural. Another kind of control that I want to go over with you here that kind of makes a big difference is the sustain control. And actually, this is linked to the speed control. And you can see here when I hover over it, it changes the speed value based on the note length. So this means if you have longer sustained held out notes, you can control the speed based on how long the note actually is. I know that sounds confusing. Let's jump in. Let's do an example here. If I have a higher speed or a higher sustain percentage, this plugin is going to hard tune those really long notes really, really tightly and really quickly. And you'll see here, there's going to be an indicator that shows you how this is actually working inside the plugin.
Well, I won't back down. No, I won't back down. Well, I won't back down.
Listen to the word down, the first word down, down. It's a really tight kind of pitch correction there.
Well, I won't back down.
Down. You can hear the transition and you can kind of hear the flutter between the notes. So now let's turn this sustain all the way to the negative side. And what that's going to do is when there's a longer note happening, it's going to slow the speed down even further. This is really helpful for longer held notes that have a lot of vibrato to them, right? It's going to kind of prevent that fluttering effect from happening.
Well, I won't back down. No, I won't back down.
Nice. It sounds way more natural that way, right? Here's with a high sustain one more time.
Well, I won't back down.
You can hear it flutter and kind of like that hard tuning transition happening between the notes. And then negative.
Well, I won't back down.
Much nicer, much cleaner, much smoother. Now, there are a few other options and parameters and things like that this plugin has. You can check out some tutorial videos, full tutorial videos directly from Slate Digital. I'll make sure to add a link in the description just so you can really get to know this plugin inside and out. But there is one more parameter I want to cover in here. So we're going to cover that in tip number 3, double the fun. So when it comes to backing vocals and harmony vocals, a pretty common recording technique is to record your lead vocal right up the center and then a pair of backing vocals and panning one to the left, one to the right, just to kind of make things sound larger than life, kind of like it's surrounding the listener. I think that's a really cool effect. Let's jump into the DAW here and see what that looks like. So in this session, we've got a lead vocal right up the center, and then I've got a background vocal, hard pan to the left. I've got another harmony, hard pan to the right. Let's listen to what that sounds like.
And I'll keep this world from dragging me down. Gonna stand my ground.
So cool effect, really kind of wide vocals. But what happens if you don't have a couple of these vocal tracks? What happens when you just have a single vocal track and you want to achieve that same kind of effect? Well, MetaTune has this awesome feature built into it. It's the doubler. So it creates a convincing doubler, right? There are some doublers out there that really kind of suck. And I think this one does a really good job at creating the effect. So let's go ahead. First, let's listen to this vocal, just see what it sounds like flat, straight up the middle. So we've got a lead vocal here, and then we've got a harmony vocal there, right up the middle.
And I'll keep this world from dragging me down. Gonna stand my ground.
Some guys might like that, right? But I like to keep my background vocals out of the center. One, because it just brings more width into the song, into the track. And two, it keeps from cluttering up the center, right? There's already a lot going on in the center. There's a lead vocal, there's a kick, there's a snare, there's a bass, there's all kinds of stuff going on there. So it's kind of my goal to kind of keep that area free of clutter as much as possible. And I just kind of like this effect. So what we're gonna do here is apply the doubler. You've got a dry wet slider here, dry wet. I'm just going to go 100% wet. And then you've got width. So you can kind of decide where the doubles are going to be sitting. I'm just going to go 100% wide. Now let's listen.
And I'll keep this world from dragging me down. Gonna stand my ground.
Nice. Nice and wide, dude. Okay, one more time without.
And I'll keep this world from dragging me down.
Now let's bring in the width.
And I'll keep this world from dragging me down.
Now let's just quickly compare that with our double-tracked vocals.
And I'll keep this world from dragging me down.
The pair of vocals, and now the single vocal with the effect.
And I'll keep this world from dragging me down.
It feels a lot tighter to me because it's just that single track with the effect on it, rather than all of the tiny little nuances of the hard panned take to the left and the differences between the hard pan against the hard pan take to the right. Really, really cool effect. I think it sounds great. It's really kind of convincing when it comes to getting that kind of hard panned left-right effect. Definitely something worth playing with, definitely something worth experimenting with. In any genre, you can use this effect in pop and rock, in folk, in country, in whatever you want. Super useful. So now for the bonus tip. This is really more of a workflow rant. So the way I like to use auto-tune is inside of the editing phase. Right? So after I've done my recording and before I've moved on to mixing, there's that part of the production process, which is editing. Don't ignore this. And this is where I like to use auto-tune. It helps me tighten up my vocals really quickly without having to use manual pitch correction tools, Melodyne, Flex Pitch, things like that. And when I'm done using the plugin and I'm done auto-tuning my vocals, I bounce them in place. And there's a few reasons for that. Number one, I just like a clean mixing window when I start the mix. It's just a preference. I like to keep things nice and tidy. Number two, it saves on CPU, saves on processing power. Right? If you bake it right into the track, you don't have to worry about that chomping up all the resources for your machine. And number three, it's a good way to just commit. I think a big problem with a lot of producers and a lot of musicians is indecision. The ability to just commit to something and move forward to the next thing, right? There are so many options out there. There are so many samples to choose from. There are so many ways you can manipulate sound and tweak sound. You could spend years on a single sound, right? The options are limitless, but being able to just make a decision, commit to something, and move forward, that's going to make you a more efficient and a more effective producer, somebody who gets things done more often and completes projects and puts things out there and shares their art with the world on a consistent basis. And that's really the point, right? Create regardless. So speaking of being an efficient producer, an effective songwriter, somebody who creates music and creates it often, if you're ready to go from being a hobbyist to turning music into a source of income, that's what I do. I coach people on how to create music that's polished and professional and how to start and grow your music business so that you can get paid to do what you love. So if that's something you're interested in, make sure to check out the free training I put together. You can click the screen now or check out the link in the description. It walks you through really the best, most effective way to get paid as quickly as possible in the music industry today. I think you're going to get a lot of value from it. That's all from me. This is Jay Codeweiss signing off. Remember, create regardless. I'll see you next time.